The torches along the marble corridor flickered like nervous hearts, their flames bending as if afraid of the man walking beneath them. King Xerxes moved slowly through the hall, the rustle of his golden robes echoing like whispers in a tomb. Outside, the night hummed with distant thunder, and the palace of Persepolis seemed to hold its breath. He had returned from the wars in Greece, victorious in numbers but defeated in spirit. The gods had mocked him. The sea itself had rebelled against him. His armies had once stretched from the Indus to the Nile. Yet in his eyes now burned something colder than ambition paranoia. Behind those eyes lay secrets. And among those secrets were his daughters, the royal harem. A labyrinth of perfumed chambers and silken shadows was a world no man dared to speak of openly. It was guarded not by soldiers but by silence. Women from every province, Egyptian dancers, Babylonian priestesses, Median waves lived there like birds in a golden cage. But the most guarded of all were Xerxes' own daughters, Atossa, Amestris and little Rhodogeon, each different, each dangerous in her own way. That night, Xerxes entered the harem not as a father, but as a king burdened by omens. A Greek prisoner had whispered a prophecy before. Dying, the serpent will devour its own brood. Since then, Xerxes had been restless. He saw signs in everything, in the shadows on the walls, in the way his daughters looked at one another, in the soft sound of their laughter. He called for the head eunuch. "Summon them," Xerxes said. His voice was low, steady, and cold. "All three." When the eunuch bowed and left, Xerxes sat upon a carved ivory seat, his hands trembling despite the gold rings that weighed them down. He had built an empire by conquering others, but he could not conquer the silence that had begun to grow between him and his daughters. Soon. The heavy doors opened. Atossa entered first, tall, proud, her dark eyes sharp as obsidian. She had inherited her father's mind, and with it his cruelty. She bowed only slightly, more out of form than respect. Behind her came Amestris, the middle daughter, quiet, watchful, the one people called the Whisperer. She spoke little but heard everything. Last was Rhodogeon, the youngest, still barely a woman, whose innocence made her both adored and despised in the court. My daughters, Xerxes began, his gaze sweeping over them. There is unrest in Persepolis. Spies whisper that betrayal festers even within the royal house. Atossa's eyebrow arched slightly. Betrayal, father, or fear? Her tone carried both challenge and concern. Xerxes' jaw tightened. Do not speak as though you are above suspicion, he said sharply. Even the blood of a king can be poisoned. The silence that followed was thick. Somewhere, beyond the silk curtains, a flute played faintly, an innocent sound that made the tension worse. Amestris stepped forward, her voice calm. "Father, if someone has turned against you, we will find them. But to accuse your own blood, enough," Xerxes interrupted. He rose from his seat, towering over them. "I have seen things. The gods send visions to those who rule. I see shadows where my daughters should be. I see crowns falling and serpents striking. Tell me, Amestris, do you think the gods lie?" Amestris lowered her head. "The gods test, father. They do not lie." Atossa's eyes flicked to her sister, then back to Xerxes. "And what if the vision was not from the gods but from guilt?" The words cut like a blade. For a moment Xerxes' mask slipped. Beneath the golden crown and the iron command was a man haunted by the ghosts of soldiers, the cries of the drowned, the echo of his own arrogance. "You forget yourself, Atossa," he said quietly. "Do you think your wisdom makes you safe?" "I think," she replied, "that wisdom is the only thing that ever made anyone safe in this palace." He turned away from her. The firelight caught the curve of his face, throwing deep shadows across the room. "You will all remain within these walls until I say otherwise," Xerxes declared. "No letters, no visitors, no whispers beyond what I allow. The harem will be sealed at dawn." Rhodogeon gasped. "Father, why? What have we done?" Asterisk, you have lived too long in comfort, Xerxes said, and I have grown blind to the dangers nearest my heart. Asterisk, he left the chamber before they could answer, the doors closing behind him like a tomb sealing shut. For the next few days the palace grew quieter. Servants avoided the harem wing. The scent of incense hung heavy in the air. Unable to mask the smell of fear, Asterisk Atossa paced her chamber like a lioness in a cage. She had always been ambitious, but now her father's madness threatened everything. She knew what power did to men. It turned them against those they loved most. Asterisk, one night, she gathered her sisters in secret. Asterisk, he is losing his mind, Atossa whispered. He dreams of serpents and betrayal because he fears himself. If we do not act, we will be the ones accused. Asterisk Amastris frowned. Act how? He is the great king. To defy him is death. Asterisk, to do nothing, Atossa said. Is death just the same? Asterisk Rodagan clutched her sister's hand. He's our father. He loves us. Asterisk Atossa looked at her sadly. He loves what we represent. But love cannot save us now. Asterisk Amastris sat silently for a long moment, her mind working. She had heard rumors from the court that Xerxes' counselors were plotting to replace him, that the army was restless. If the king fell, they would all be destroyed or enslaved by whoever came next. Asterisk, there is one thing, Amastris said finally. If we could prove loyalty beyond doubt, he might spare us. Asterisk, and how? Atossa Asterisk Amastris hesitated, then said quietly, by giving him the one thing he fears most, truth. That same night, Xerxes stood on the balcony of his private chamber, looking down at the dark city below. The wind carried faint echoes of music from the distant quarters. He felt old, though he was still a man in his prime. His empire stretched wider than any before it, yet he had never felt more trapped. His thoughts were broken by the sound of footsteps. Who comes? Asterisk, it is I, Amastris said softly. She bowed and approached, her face half hidden by a veil. Asterisk, you defy my command, Xerxes said, though without anger. You were told to remain in your quarters. Asterisk, I came to beg for understanding, my king, she said. You see shadows where there are none? Let your daughters prove their loyalty. Let us face you not as subjects, but as family. Asterisk Xerxes looked at her, his expression unreadable. And how will you prove loyalty, child? Asterisk, by telling you what others will not. She lifted her eyes to him. There are men in your court who use your fears to control you. They whisper poison in your ears, turning you against your own blood. Names, Xerxes demanded. I have none to give, she said. Only a plea to open your heart once more. Asterisk Xerxes' hands tightened on the marble railing. You speak of hearts to a man who rules the world. Do you think I can afford to love? Asterisk Amastris took a step closer. Then why does it hurt you so much to lose it? Asterisk, for a moment, the great king said nothing. A crack of thunder split the sky and rain began to fall. The torches hissed, the flames bending under the storm. Asterisk, when Xerxes finally spoke, his voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. Asterisk, you remind me of your mother, he said. She too thought that truth could tame a throne. Asterisk, what happened to her? Amastris asked softly. Asterisk's eyes hardened. She learned that even love is not beyond suspicion. Asterisk Amastris bowed her head, tears mixing with rain. Then I pray you learn what suspicion costs, before it takes everything. Asterisk, she left him then, as Xerxes watched her go. His heart a storm as wild as the one raging above. In the days that followed, rumors swirled through the palace of spies executed, advisors dismissed, scrolls burned. Xerxes' paranoia deepened. The prophecy haunted him still. The serpent will devour its own brood. Asterisk, he began to test his daughters, setting traps with questions, watching their every reaction. He sent servants to spy on them, to twist their words. The once glorious harem became a web of fear. Asterisk Atossa's anger grew with each passing day. He wants us to destroy each other, she told Amastris. That is how madness spreads like fire. Asterisk, but Amastris said nothing. She had seen something in their father's eyes that frightened her more than his wrath. It was guilt, and guilt, she knew, was the beginning of ruin. One evening, a messenger brought word from Babylon. A rebellion had begun. Xerxes' enemies were rising, and his own generals questioned his strength. The empire trembled. That night, Xerxes summoned his daughters again. You will each stand before me, he said, and swear your loyalty by the sacred fire. Those who hesitate will be cast out. Atossa's jaw set. Amestris trembled but obeyed. Rhodogun wept, as the flames rose between them. Xerxes' eyes shone like molten gold. Swear to serve your king above all else, he commanded. Atossa looked straight into his eyes. I will serve Persia, she said. But a king who destroys his own house destroys his nation first? The words struck like thunder. For a moment no one breathed. Xerxes stared at her, then turned to the guards. Take her away. Rhodogun screamed. Amestris fell to her knees. But Xerxes' face was stone, as the doors closed on Atossa. The prophecy echoed once more in his mind. The serpent will devour its own brood. He did not yet realize that the serpent was not his daughters. It was himself. The palace was quieter than a tomb. Since Atossa's arrest, the laughter that once drifted through the harem had died completely. Even the fountains seemed to whisper now, their water moving sluggishly under the cold stare of marble lions. Amestris sat by the window of her chamber, her hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles had gone white. In the distance, she could see the soldiers patrolling the courtyard where her sister was held. She hadn't seen Atossa since the night their father ordered her taken away. Do you think he'll harm her? Rhodogun asked in a trembling voice. She was pale, her once bright eyes dull with fear. Amestris didn't answer. She remembered her father's face when he gave the order, the mix of rage and pain, as if he were punishing himself as much as his daughter. He will not, Amestris said finally. He can't. But even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it. 2 days passed. No word came. Servants avoided their eyes, guards muttered under their breath. The empire outside their walls continued to tremble. Rebellions in Babylon, unrest in Egypt, generals turning their banners toward themselves. Yet Xerxes seemed blind to it all. He spent hours alone in the throne room, staring at the fire that burned at the center of the chamber. Sometimes those who dared to pass by heard him muttering under his breath, "The serpent! The serpent!" When Amestris was summoned again, she went with her heart pounding. Xerxes sat on the steps of the throne, his crown discarded beside him. His hair hung loose around his face, streaked with gray, though he was not yet old. Father, she whispered. He didn't look up. Your sister still defies me, he said. She will not confess what the gods showed me. Amestris hesitated. Confess to what? To betrayal, Xerxes said sharply. She speaks of Persia as though I am not its soul. She dares say that kings can fall. That is treason. She spoke truth, not treason, Amestris said quietly, his eyes snapped up to hers, blazing. Truth? He rose, his robe sweeping the marble floor like thunderclouds. The truth is that kings are the realm. When they bleed, the land bleeds. When they doubt, the people fall into chaos. Tell me, daughter, do you doubt me too? Amestris shook her head. I doubt only what fear makes of you. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Xerxes froze. The torchlight wavered between them, and in that silence, something inside him cracked like a mirror splitting down the middle. Fear, he repeated softly, almost to himself. Yes, fear has many faces. It hides behind love, behind loyalty, behind daughters who whisper truth like poison. He stepped closer until his shadow fell over her. Perhaps the prophecy was not about betrayal, but purification. Amestris's throat tightened. What are you saying? That sometimes the serpent must devour its brood, Xerxes said, to save the world from the rot within. Asterisk, she backed away slowly, her heart hammering. Father, asterisk, but he turned from her, staring into the fire again. Leave me, he said. Before I forget which daughter you are. The night air outside the palace was heavy, thick with the scent of rain and jasmine. Somewhere in the darkness, a storm brewed over the plains of Persepolis. Inside the walls, another storm was ready to break. Asterisk, a mistress could no longer sleep. She moved through the harem's corridors like a ghost, the soft solace of her slippers whispering over the marble. Every lamp she passed flickered as if afraid. Asterisk, she reached the wing that had been sealed since Atosa's arrest. 2 guards stood there, their armor dull in the dim light. Asterisk, I must see her. A mistress said. Asterisk, no one may enter by the king's command, one replied. Not meeting her eyes. Asterisk, I am his daughter, she said firmly. And you are his servants. If she dies, her blood will be on your hands as well as his. Asterisk, the guards exchanged uneasy glances. Xerxes' rage was legendary, but so was his daughter's will. After a long pause, one stepped aside. A mistress slipped through the door. The air inside was cold. The torches burned low. She could smell incense, but beneath it iron, the smell of blood. Asterisk, Atosa? She whispered. Asterisk, a figure sat in the shadows, motionless. As a mistress approached, she saw her sister bound to a carved wooden chair. Her wrists were bruised, her eyes half closed, but when she heard a mistress's voice, they opened. Asterisk, you shouldn't have come, Atosa murmured. Her voice was weak but steady. He watches everything now, even our dreams. Asterisk, a mistress fell to her knees beside her. Sister, what has he done? Asterisk, Atosa gave a faint, bitter smile. What kings always do when they're afraid. He's trying to erase what he cannot control. Asterisk, tears welled in a mistress's eyes. I'll free you. Asterisk, Atosa's gaze softened. No, listen to me. He's not the same man. The gods have turned him mad. He sees enemies in every shadow, even in his own reflection. If you try to save me, you'll join me. Asterisk, a mistress shook her head. Then we'll both fall. Asterisk, Atosa looked past her at the flickering flame on the wall. If we fall, then maybe Persia will remember what he became. That will be my vengeance. Asterisk, a noise echoed behind them. Footsteps. Asterisk, a mistress spun around too late. Xerxes stood in the doorway, the light behind him turning his silhouette into a god's, but his eyes were not divine. They were hollow, burning with the fever of suspicion. Asterisk, so, he said quietly, even my orders mean nothing in my own house. Asterisk, a mistress rose slowly, trembling. Father, please, asterisk, do not call me that. His voice cracked like a whip. You have chosen your side? Asterisk, he turned to the guards. Take her away, and let the gods judge which of them speaks truth. Asterisk, Atosa laughed weakly. The gods stopped listening long ago, father. Asterisk, Xerxes hesitated, just a heartbeat, but it was enough for the pain to show on his face. Then he turned and walked away, his robe dragging through the blood-stained floor. Asterisk, a mistress was seized by the guards, struggling as they pulled her back toward the hall. Asterisk, father, she screamed. Look at what fear has made of you. But Xerxes didn't turn. The doors slammed shut. Asterisk, and in that silence, Atosa's laughter turned into a sound that no one could tell was joy or sorrow. The dawn came without warmth. The city of Persepolis woke beneath a veil of gray cloud as if the heavens themselves mourned. From her chamber, Rodagon watched the courtyard below where soldiers drilled without conviction. The drums were hollow, the banners heavy with dust. The empire her father had built was beginning to sink under its own weight. Asterisk, she had heard the cries in the night. She knew her sisters were gone, or as good as gone, and that she was the last thread that still bound Xerxes to the memory of family. She wanted to believe there was some part of the man who had once lifted her onto his shoulders and pointed to the stars, telling her they bowed before Persia's king. Asterisk, when the summons came, she went without hesitation. Asterisk, the throne room smelled of smoke and old incense. Xerxes sat slumped on the steps, his crown on the floor beside him, one hand tangled in his hair. For a moment he looked like a statue carved from sorrow itself. Rodogan, he said. Her name sounded unfamiliar in his mouth, as though he had forgotten what it meant. You were always the gentle one. I came because I love you, father, she said simply. Love. He laughed softly, the sound brittle. Your sisters said the same before they betrayed me. She stepped closer. They feared for you, not against you. Can't you see that? He raised his head. His eyes were red, not from anger but exhaustion. Every word I hear sounds like another lie. My generals plot in the north, my priests whisper that the gods have turned away, and my daughters speak to me of fear. Tell me, child, if the world itself conspires against its king, what is left for him to trust? Rodogan knelt beside him. Not the world, she said. Only the heart that beats inside it. For the first time in many months, silence between them was not sharp, but soft. She reached out, her small hand touching his. The gesture trembled, but she did not pull away. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. Xerxes closed his eyes, and for a heartbeat he seemed to hear the voices of his lost soldiers. The crash of ships in the Hellespont. The whispers of all he had destroyed in his hunger for greatness. I was a god among men, he said quietly. And now I am a man among ghosts. Rodogan's fingers tightened around his. Then let the ghosts rest, father. Let Persia breathe again. For a moment he almost smiled. Then a servant burst into the hall, panting. My king, Babylon has fallen. The banners are aflame. The light faded from Xerxes' eyes. He stood slowly, pulling his hand free. So even the heart of empire is ash. He turned toward the great doors, his voice barely more than a whisper. There is no saving what the gods have already abandoned.